Thank you for joining us today at the Chai Academy. It is my honor and privilege to present these classes that we do a few times a week, and they've all been saved on thechaicenter.com/academy and on Spotify and on YouTube. Just check out the Chai Academy. Today's class, the heading would be ethics and beliefs. The subheading, the particular class for today, is Tikkun Olam, ethical monotheism. Very, it's a buzzword, especially in Jewish circles. It's a buzzword. The question is, what does it mean? And what is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What is ethical monotheism? What is it? And so while some of the discussion today may surprise you, it is I'm not really coming to teach you anything you don't know, but rather just put things in perspective. So essentially, we as Jews, we pray a couple times a day, 3 times a day. And the very last prayer we recite before we conclude the services is a prayer called Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabech. It is incumbent upon us. And it talks about that we need to do 2 things. We need to know for ourselves and teach our family and also others this concept called God, an awareness of God, and doesn't stop there, and it's to tell people that God demands from human beings morality. Doesn't demand it from animals, doesn't demand it from paint chips, doesn't demand it from tires, demands it from human beings. Human beings, aside from having an awareness of God, combined with that, there's a demand for human morality, right? And it's another name for it is called ethical perfection, based on the world of God. So that's our job. Our job is an awareness of God together with human morality. Abraham Joshua Heschel, a great rabbi, he posited that somewhere along the line, Jews have lost that message. We may say it 3 times a day, or we may never say it if we don't pray. But somewhere along the line, Jews as a totality have completely lost the message of an awareness of God and demand of humans the concept of morality. Morality is what is good, what is not good to do, to behave, to act, to foster, etc. And he says, take for example, you have very religious Jews. So do they believe that as a member of the Jewish faith that they are special? Absolutely. However, many times, they focus more on ritual than morality. In other words, their ritual is more important than their morality. It's what's important is how they pray and how they don the prayer shawl, the talit, and et cetera, but without morality. I'll give you an example. I was on a plane yesterday, and a fellow, a Orthodox guy, I'm Orthodox too, right? But he comes over to me and he says to me, and I want to change seats to my row and his row, which was next to us. So that way, it's I don't have to sit next to a woman. Now, that is condescending. But in his rush to ritual, which you're allowed to sit next to a woman. But his rush and his zeal, he he tried to offend, he did offend everybody without even him realizing. It was more important to him that he got to sit where he sat and he's content that he, based on his upbringing, is ritually correct than the amount of bridges that he left burning in his wake. It is not okay. It is not okay. Your one is not allowed to poo-poo laws because they're not Torah laws. You're not allowed to, right? You're not allowed to. There was a story about that. Two people they arrested for Medicaid fraud, etc. It's they would never eat non-kosher, right? Never. So the same God that tells them you got to keep kosher and don't eat pork is the same God in the same Torah that tells them you have to be moral as opposed to immoral or amoral. And but we'll find, I'm generalizing here, but you'll find a lot of people that the focus is on being ritual, and it's not so much about how offensive it is to others, as long as they get their ritual, their ritual acts good, they're happy. And let's take Israel, for example. Most religious Jews, right, feel Israel can do no wrong. Right? Israel has made mistakes. Right? Do I feel that they err on the side of caution in general? Absolutely, I do. Do they drop leaflets before they bomb? Do they, do they let their enemies know? Yeah, they do. And it's a moral army. But do they make mistakes that's immoral? And the answer is yes. You cannot be blind and say Israel never makes mistakes. We spoke about it the other day about Kfar Kesem, where 8 Israeli soldiers were court-martialed for killing civilians. It happens, and you have to own up and say you can't just go blindly and say Israel is good. Israel is good. I heard a lecture recently by Elisha Wiesel, Eli Wiesel's son. He was speaking, and he echoes the same sentiment. Israel, 90% good. Are there times that they mess up and they don't treat their neighbors fairly? Or is it just individual or from a government, whatever it may be? The answer is, yeah, there are times. So they view morals. Many people view morals as a suggestion, but ritual is etched in stone, which is interesting because a lot of the rituals that we have are customs. And not being a moral, upstanding person is biblical. Custom is by definition a localized, sometimes it's not so local, rabbinic injunction or custom. But on the flip side of the same coin, you have the paradox, right? You have a lot of secular Jews where Israel can do no right. And any Jew that says Israel is an apartheid state, to me is foolish, is misguided, is wrong, is off, it's dangerous, and I always say this. I say the difference between 1933 and 2022 is Israel. If Israel would have existed in 1933, 1935, 1937, 39, etc., there wouldn't have been 6 million dead. There would not. Right? So to just knock Israel publicly, etc., have this conversation. But you have to have this conversation with an open mind and be in private. To stand next to Linda Sarsour is an outrage, because what Linda Sarsour wants is, and it's been proven time and time again, is a complete, total, utter destruction of Israel. So therefore, being Tikkun Olam, well, I'm being moral and I'm standing up for the underdog, and that's the buzzword. and being social justice is wrong if it is not consistent with truth. If it's consistent with truth, that's one thing. But if it's inconsistent with truth, it's another. You cannot blanketly say Israel is an apartheid state, right? And it every time, and so you want to say an anti-Semitic organization says it, but when you have a Jewish organization, if not now, when? Or it's horrific. It's horrific. It's dangerous, right? And they think it's Tikkun Olam. They think it's progressive justice, social justice, when in reality it's perversion. It's just it's immoral. It's immoral. And so secular Jews will say yes, but the chosen people were special, just like a more of a religious Jew would say they're special. Except their specialness is completely reverse. One is rituals, and with a non-focus on morality, and the other one is morality with a non-focus on ritual. Period. Right? Which is it's just not good, and that's what Abraham Joshua Heschel meant when he said that Jews have lost the message. I believe is 100% correct. So become these. I don't know. I apologize, Marianne. I don't know exactly what you mean. Otherwise, I would comment. But So, what is Tikkun Olam? What is it? We know that once again, it's ethical perfection, awareness of God. And that same God demands that we're moral. We have morality, right? That same God. So therefore, if you're going to have social justice at the expense of morality, that's not Tikkun Olam. If you're going to be ritualistic but have no morals, or you lack a morality, that's not Tikkun Olam either, right? So we find Tikkun Olam is such a buzzword, and yes, we're gonna have Thanksgiving, we're gonna feed the homeless, and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna have such a gonna help and kumbaya, etc. It's beautiful, but it's only one side of the coin. I would never rule the performance of feeding the homeless and giving charity and being anti this and anti that because it's terrible what's going on in this world. Never. But you have to be moral, and you also have to have ritual. You have to have an awareness of God, and I don't mean an elementary awareness of God. I mean an awareness of God. Right? You know, they tell that joke about a general's walking, and he's a bunch of privates, and he's walking. He goes, name and religion. So the guy says, O'Reilly, Catholic. Right? Ahmed, Muslim. Right? And then he says, Kaplan and so the general said to him, Jewish. Right? It's such a fear to recognize that you're that there's a God and you're Jewish and it's beautiful, etc., etc. So you need both. And by the way, the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue, right? Probably the most important document ever. Right? God gave us 2 stones, right? On one stone was the relationship between man and God. On the other stone was a relationship, interpersonal relationships. You can't just have one. God didn't just say, okay, you got to be kind to me, you got to believe in me, and you have to have an awareness of me, and keep my Sabbath, and make sure don't use my name in vain, and don't say curse my name, and don't blaspheme, can't be blasphemous, etc. No, he said that, and you can't steal, you can't kill, you can't bear false witness, and you can't. So many. it's interpersonal, and you need both. So therefore, that is Tikkun Olam. If you do both, you have perfected the world. If you only have one, it's flawed, and it can possibly be perverted. Most likely, if you only have one, and you're not open to the other, most likely it is perverted. You cannot pray 3 times a day, study Torah, keep the Sabbath, and then steal in business. Can't do that. Can't do that. That's not Tikkun Olam. But on the flip side of the same coin, you cannot save the whales, march on an anti-something rally, and try and help Darfur, but at the same time reject who you are. That you are a human being that has a God. And by the way, this is Jews, Christians, Muslims, Taoists. I don't care what it is. Right? You can't have Tikkun Olam. You can't have a perfect world if you just completely reject. You cannot just focus on social issues. You cannot just focus on religion. I can't underscore this enough. Right? And if you take a look at the Torah, which is, once again, the Decalogue is taken from the Torah. The Torah is replete with ritual mitzvahs, with interpersonal mitzvahs, with don't hit and torts. There's so many torts. Can you imagine torts? In this book of God, there's torts. If a person is negligent and somebody falls and trips and hurts themselves, this is the punishment. If somebody's their dog chased another person and bit them, this is the ramifications. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. The Torah is also about rituals, right? Because you gotta have both. You gotta have both. You can't just not have one. You can't just have one. So therefore, if you march Darfur, you also have to march against anti-Semitism. You have to. I don't care who you are. But if you're committed to marching, then you got to march. Right? And when the Black Lives Matters, I went to a protest, because I don't like what I saw. But the minute they line themselves with anti-Semites, I back away. It's not, I gotta be, this is immoral. This is immoral. Right? I know a synagogue on Rosh Hashanah brought out Al Sharpton to speak on Rosh Hashanah. Right? Why? Oh, kumbaya, tikkun olam. It's wrong. It's wrong. I grew up during the riots in 1991, and I can tell you empirically, I witnessed it is factually, it's wrong to bring out Al Sharpton. It's wrong, right? It's wrong to bring out Rashid Tlaib, and Linda Sarsour, etc. And likewise, if you're Jewish and you're a racist, it's wrong as well, right? Deplore racists, and racism. So there was this. Growing up, there was this person who, I even forget who it was. I don't want to say it because I think I know who it was, but every good Arab is a dead Arab. That's insane thing to say. Insane. And I was a kid then. But now I wouldn't tolerate it. Right? I wouldn't tolerate it because that's racism. That's racism. So you have to be well-rounded. You cannot be a schizophrenic. And you cannot, if it's immoral, you have to say it's immoral. And even if it's a cause you believe in, once it takes an immoral twist, you have to say, I stop here, it's immoral. I'm not doing this anymore. It's immoral. It's so incredibly important. there's a great word in Judaism. It's called kadosh, holy. Right? What does kadosh mean? So it means holy, but what does holy mean? So it's explained in all the books that kadosh means to elevate oneself. To elevate oneself. You don't want to, you want to be different. You want to rise above the fray, not in an aloof way, but you need to take a stand where you have to realize if there's something, if it reeks, I'm out of it. All right? You can't just hang out with the lowest common denominator. You have to be a leader. You have to be a leader. And you have to be kadosh also means different. You can't not just parrot something that somebody says. No, you have to be different. You have to realize that you have to use your common sense, and if it's immoral, and even if you like this organization or like this party or like this individual, if they're immoral, they're immoral. And there's no, there should be no thought and well, I really like them. I really, you got to call it out for what it is. Right? You got to call it out for what it is. And that's true for politics as well, which I'm not going to go into. Now, our job is a great expression. Our job is to Mailin Bakodesh. We have to rise in holiness. We always have to be on the ascension. We cannot rest on our laurels. We always have to try and better ourselves. Because if we just remain static, then eventually you're going to slip. So you have to continuously educate yourself. You have to continuously evaluate yourself. And you have to ask yourself, it may have been Tikkun Olam yesterday, but is it Tikkun Olam today? Right? Does it make sense today? Right? So, it is. I can't think. I don't want to say a specific example, but if something's gone awry, it's gone awry, and you have to elevate yourself, and make sure that you have a modicum of respect for oneself, and say okay, and that's true. You have to work on yourself with your awareness of God. You have to work on yourself, and we know we can all improve spiritually. We also need to improve physically, mentally, right? We have to improve also with our social outlook and our social justice. It may be corrupt. It may be corrupt, and you have to recognize it. So just a root for the underdog is not Tikkun Olam. It's not. It's a poor attempt at Tikkun Olam. Morality. Keep your eye on the prize. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask, and we will attempt to answer. You can always ask later, or you can contact me, rabbi at thechaycenter.com. If you wish to see this class again, it's on Facebook, it's on the Chai Center website, and it is also on Spotify and YouTube and Anchor. Please feel free to share this and every comment, and every lecture, every class, and don't be shy. It says in the Mishnah, "Lo yabaishin lo yimid." The one who's shy will never really learn, because I don't want to ask questions. I'm afraid of being ridiculed, etc. No, it's good to ask questions. Be well, and may the Schwartz be with you.